And it says we're going live. And it says we're live. And in a second, DJ will see it and say, yes, we really are live. So, welcome to the Dulcimoon Talk number 29. I'm Erin Mae. DJ Hamouris is our co-host over here. And then we are really excited today to be joined by Mickey Sweeney, who is the reigning National Hammered Dulcimer Champion. Yay!
Thank you.
We're always delighted when women win the contests and are well represented in those spaces. And so we're really excited that you're here. So you live in Missouri, is that right?
I do now. Yeah.
All right. And the national competition is in Winfield, Kansas, which is sort of my neighborhood where I'm at. I live in Wichita, but I've been going to that festival for my whole life. So
Wow.
I'm just gonna put DJ in the background. She's here. She's watching in the background. Okay, so I would love to talk to you about the actual experience of competing and winning this contest. How did it feel? Were you nervous? Were you excited? Tell us all about the contest.
Yes, I was nervous. Yes, I was excited. It's to me terrifying. I'm not a natural performer. I don't thrive on being in front of people. It makes me very nervous. I did a lot of things to get ready for it, but the actual thing, so you do two pieces that should not total more than 5 minutes. So you got to cut everything back. You draw numbers to see who goes first. So I was number one, which I thought was a good thing, but I got up there and yeah, they have it mic'd and they have the monitors for the audience and that goes back to the judges. I had no monitor. So I started playing and the sound just disappeared. That was disconcerting. That did not help the situation. So I got done with my two pieces. I got to listen to everybody else. When you do it by number. So the judge announces contestant number one. They don't tell what you're going to play. They don't say anything. They tell you if you're going to cough, do it in a gender neutral tone. So the judges don't know anything about you. So then they called my number. So I was already back there tuning just in case. I really thought I did badly the first time. I had 4 pieces and I took the weakest 2 for the first, just hoping they were good enough to get me to the second round because I had my good pieces on the second round. And I finished. And it's like, oh my God, that was a bad decision. But I was tuning just in case, and they did call my number. So then I was at least more in tune. And then I was last, which was delightful because they picked 5 for the finals. I was last. That was good. So I had broken a string that day.
Oh no.
And so Rick Thumb is there and my husband ran to him. I mean, I had another string. They're double strings, right? So that was going to be okay. But my husband, Dave, ran to Rick Thumb and he says, well, I don't have that particular string, but here's one that will work. So it had to be tuned like every 10 minutes because it wasn't quite the right thing. And then going up onto the stage, I had the dulcimer, in my hands and I broke another string, but it was the one at the very bottom. And I had it muted just in case I hit it by accident. And it was a G sharp, as I never play a G sharp. So that was kind of a godsend, except that it was, all of a sudden it happened.
It's very stressful when those kinds of surprises are
I
thrown
know.
in at the same time that you're already feeling a little bit nervous.
So there was that.
Wow.
But the second round really went pretty well. There was pieces I was confident with. I had competed before, but never with very much preparation. So I'd been working for almost a year toward these. And those 2 pieces were pretty solid. So I felt good about them. My hands started shaking. I mean, really shaking, but I just ignored them. I mean, I just focused on the bridge. Don't look at your hands.
Yeah.
And then, so after that's over with the 5 people and they're all very good. You don't get to hear everybody, but what I heard, I mean, people are excited. And the guy that got third played Hotel California. It was so cool. It was so cool. so they take us back in a room and there's 5 of us and they announce who the runners up are. And then, the 3 of us are staring at each other. Okay, who is it? Then they announce who got third and the 2 of us are staring at each other and they announce who got second and it wasn't my name. And I just couldn't breathe. It just took my breath away. I was in shock. So that was all just looking back on it. That part was fun.
Aw. That's the part. It's so funny. My hands are sweating right now. That's the part that made me the most anxious was the waiting to find out at the end. I remember at Mountain View, Arkansas, they used to do the contest there, where the contest itself was run in the afternoon. But they didn't announce the winners until intermission of the evening contest. So you waited like 3 hours to find out who won. And by the time we got to that part, I was like a ball of nervous energy. And I was like, why am I nervous about this part? The playing is over.
Yeah.
But for some reason, that's the part when I got really anxious, is like finding out how people actually judged me makes me feel really.
Once I finished playing, I'm good. I don't care what. I mean, I really wasn't tied to getting first, although I had done so much to prepare for it. I had done everything I could possibly think of to prepare for this. And if I didn't get first, I was never going to get first. It was just, I gave it my all. And I was really hoping to get first because I really don't want to do it again.
Uh-huh. Tell us about the preparation process. What were some things that you did?
I took lessons from everybody I knew. I'm a student of Rick Thumb. So he had pushed me out of the nest 2 years ago and told me I had to go to Winfield, which I argued about, and then I went. And that was the thing I started. So I had to finish it. I just had to finish what I started. So he's kind of my coach. I took lessons, go to all these festivals. I took lessons from Mary Lynn Michael, who I was at a festival and she wanted to change my grip. And it felt better. So, okay, let's go ahead and do that. And I took lessons from Joshua Messick to help me with arrangements because I think he's a dulcimer guru.
Yeah.
And he
His
helped with
arranging
the
is
arrangements so
brilliant.
much. I wrote one piece a couple years ago called Reflections on a Kayak because I was out having breakfast on on the kayak on the lake. And it was just so gorgeous. I wanted to capture that feeling. It was originally called Two Muffins on a Kayak because that was my breakfast. And it was an okay piece. And I'm working on. I changed it a couple times, and I'm playing it for Josh. I said, "Okay, it needs something. What else can I do?" He says, "Well, try a third voice." And I'm like, "Huh?" I got 2 hands. So he told me, "Okay, you just alternate them, and people kind of hear that they continue." So that was really neat. And holy cow, it came out. I mean, it came out awesome. I don't take any credit for it. So that was, so I did that. And I mean, I just practiced a ton. I went to the Arkansas competition. I went to the Texas competition to prepare for, just to get used to competing.
Yeah.
I went on stage at Everett, just to be on stage.
Yeah. 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 So you said the feeling of the stage at Winfield, it felt like it sort of sucked all of the sound out of your instrument. So in that moment when you're feeling like I'm not hearing what I expected to hear or I'm used to hearing, what happened in your brain and your body? How did you
First,
get past that and get back to music?
yeah. First, my inclination was to play louder. I mean,
Yeah.
harder. And then, I had to tell myself they're hearing normal. I'm the one who's not hearing normal. I just had to play. I mean, I could hear what I was doing. It just wasn't what I expected or what I was used to. So I had to recalibrate the louds and the softs for that. And then on the second round, I was prepared for it. So it wasn't so shocking.
Yeah. I find it so interesting because you described like your 2 pieces have to fit into 5 minutes. So it's not a very long amount of time that you are performing when you are competing. And yet the inner dialogue seems to sometimes contain a lot in a very short amount of
Yeah.
time. And it's kind of amazing to me how quickly our brain like gets stuck, get and then we have to talk ourselves down, and we're doing all of that while our hands are still moving. You're like,
Yeah.
don't stop playing, don't stop playing. So some part of your brain is still doing the music while this other part of your brain is sort of talking yourself into how you're gonna do the keep the music going.
The thing I found most helpful, well, at Everett, when I played on the open mic, I realized, I mean, I had talked myself into being incredibly nervous. It was me. I was doing this to myself.
Mhm.
So from July until September, I worked on getting that particular dialogue out of my head.
Good,
And
yeah.
I found that if I just concentrate on the next hard part. So I'm playing this part. The next thing I have to get ready for is that note. Okay, now the hard chord is up here. Watch out for it. I'm just talking music all the time. I didn't have time to think about audience or judges or whatever. So
Mhm.
I'm glad I found that, because that really works for me. Don't think about anything else. Just I have to have something to think about, so I don't think about the other things.
Right, right. Very consciously thinking about the music itself. I like that. All right, so I would like to go back in time. How did you end up? You said Rick Thumb kind of pushed you to enter the contest to begin with, but how did you end up with a hammered dulcimer? How did you end up being ready for this moment?
Yeah. Is anybody ever ready? So I was classical pianist and teacher for, forever. And I retired 12 years ago. And
Were
we
you
were taking a trip to
a
St. Augustine.
school teacher?
Pardon? Pardon?
School music?
Yeah. Um, so retired 12 years ago, I guess. And we were in St. Augustine on Old Town Street, and somebody was playing something that really sounded wonderful. So I went and searched for it. And here's this trapezoid shaped instrument I had really never seen before. And it had this beautiful angelic sound. So I talked to the guy that was playing it for probably 10 or 15 minutes, which is a lot when he's trying to be playing and making money and selling his CDs. So he said, come back to St. Augustine in March for the Celtic Festival, because he was playing again, which we did. So that's it's a long drive, but we were there, and I talked to him Saturday and I talked to him on Sunday for a long time after his shows. And I had just decided, okay, a year from now, I'm going to have a dulcimer. And he told me where to go to get one. It was in Asheville, and we were going back to Missouri. It's like, well, there's got to be a place here. So I went into the store that sells acoustic instruments called Music Folk. And they had a couple dulcimers, and the guy, Robert Burns, had told me, just get what you like the sound of. So it's this beautiful instrument. And I played a little, what I could do, because I didn't know anything. And it had a really pretty sound. And I looked at the price tag, and it was like half again as much as I had allowed myself to buy. And they had some smaller dusty strings instruments. I mean, they were like $800, $600, and they didn't sound as good as the big one. And the big one was used, and it was $1,500. So I'm walking out the door, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm just going to save my pennies up, whatever. So I'm walking out the door, and the cashier calls out, "You can rent one." So I got a little, I don't know if it must have been a 1211, 1210, a little bitty one that I set up on my table. And my husband's like, well, that's better. You don't know if you're going to like it or not. And I'm like, I think I'm going to like it. So I got the 1210 and I practiced it. I didn't know what I was doing, but I just kind of played around with it. And 2 weeks later, I went and bought that one that I couldn't afford. So that's what started it. I practiced
Yeah.
for 2 years in my basement, just with Maddie McNeil's "You Can Teach Yourself to Play Dulcimer" book.
Mhm.
I didn't know anything about dulcimer. Didn't grow up with folk music or bluegrass or old time music. Just wasn't a thing I listened to. So I was just kind of on my own until I moved to Missouri and started taking lessons from Rick. And gosh, thank God I did, because I wouldn't be anywhere without him. So he taught me the notes and the chords and droning and all the stuff that he teaches.
Yeah.
And he let me, I won't say I'm not a fan of old time, but because I didn't grow up with it, it's not natural to me to play it. I can't arrange it very well because I don't know what I'm looking for. So, but he
Mm-hmm.
lets me do my classical and my hymns and
Mm-hmm.
the things that I do. He lets me do the things that I do.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm curious because I have a bit of classical background woven into my story too. And when you said, you had all this classical training and you were a music teacher and you had never seen this instrument. One of the things that I have been thinking a lot about this year is how sort of the classical and folk music worlds just don't ever seem to overlap very much with each other. But many of us who end up playing folk music have some sort of classical background. So I wonder if you could just maybe talk a little bit about how you feel like classical and folk music have intersected for you as you have gone from your earlier classical training
Yeah.
into this more folk music approach. Talk about that a little bit.
Um, I do like folk music, Joan Baez, way back when.
Mhm.
So I do all like that. And I studied folk music in college, Gene Ritchie, and I forget who the other guy is that collected folk tunes. So there was that. But still, I'm a pianist. So it's pretty much classical. And I never learned to play by ear, played by the notes. When you're playing Bach, you don't dare change note or improvise. I mean, it just wasn't done. And
Right.
it's been really,
Improvisation
really,
on Beethoven is a little bit discouraged.
yeah. I mean, how dare you? So
Right.
it's really hard for me to improvise, to think about playing Soldier's Joy in 6 different ways when the melody so obvious it goes da 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 da.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's been hard as far as teaching. I was teaching public school. When I was teaching elementary, we did guitar and we did auto harp. Had I had a dulcimer, it would have been there. And I know people that are teaching that bring their dulcimers in. But I lived in rural Northeast Georgia, and there were lots of mountain dulcimers,
Mm-hmm.
but I never saw a hammered dulcimer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I I think if I'd seen one when I was 10, that would be my instrument. I really do. I just love it.
Oh,
Just love
wow.
the sound, love how it plays. I've gotten to where I don't mind tuning 122 strings. Um, too much.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. I think a lot about how do we expose kids to more variety of instruments and provide access so that the few who would be drawn to that don't have to wait until they retire and stumble into it to
Yes.
discover that it exists. Yeah, like how would your life be different if you had seen a hammer dulcimer when you were 10 instead of
And I
after you were
remember, I
young?
do remember I was at a music educators conference and they have, the vendors all out and I didn't even realize this until after I'd had the dulcimer. I had this vague recollection. They had a hammered dulcimer there and nobody was there. It didn't have a chart. They had some hammers there. So I was hitting around on it and I thought that was the coolest thing. And I was going to buy it until I found out it was $1,200. And I
Uh-huh.
didn't know what to do with it. So if just somebody had been there and played it or showed me how it was, I probably would have had one at that
Wow.
point, which was, I
Yeah.
was still probably in my 40s, but yeah, there was nobody there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I think the the field is growing. More and more and more people are playing. I play at a butterfly house in Chesterfield, Missouri, and I'm just background music. But so many people come up. I've never seen anything like that. What is that?
Yeah. Yeah. I think the internet too is increasing access and visibility in ways that it just, I mean, you can find recordings, you can find videos, and you may or may not stumble into them, but at least it is there. The
Uh-huh.
possibility of discovering it increases with every place that there's sort of like free access to
Right.
see that it exists. And we were talking in advance of going live that you're starting to work on your online setup and beginning to teach in that way. So I want to come back around to talking about some of your musical influences and things, but I would also like to know What are you envisioning for your next steps? You've now won the contest, which is one of those kind of pinnacle moments. So what's looking forward look like for you?
Um, I played at the Celtic Festival in St. Augustine. So the guy that introduced me to the dulcimer had an injury and cannot play anymore. So I had kind of an introduction into that. He got me the gig. So I played last year. They asked me to come back this year. So I'm working on that. Um,
I love that.
my
What a
husband wants
legacy
me,
moment.
yeah, it's pretty neat. And he's the MC. So it's really, that helps me be comfortable because he's there.
Mhm.
So my husband thinks I need to have a CD ready for that. I don't know. I mean, that's March. I don't think I'm going to have a CD ready. I don't know. To me, I can perform and that's nerve wracking enough, but to perform and know that it's going to be there forever,
It's pretty
you know,
hard.
nobody's going to forget how you played. Anyway, I just don't think it's going to get done by March, but a couple of people have, I don't know, educated me about you can release a single and you can do it online, or you can have an EP, which is a short CD.
Yeah.
So I've got a couple of people recorder producers, I guess, that might be able to do that. And anyway, it's kind of mind boggling. And I really love teaching. You know, I've been a teacher all my life, so I'm trying to teach more. I have one in-person student and I have one Zoom student as of yesterday. Um,
Yay.
so that's coming around. I'm going to teach at Everett because they do that. You're free. So I figure they'll get what they paid for no matter what. And they asked me to teach at Gateway Festival in Illinois.
Mhm.
So that's what I'm looking toward.
Great. I'm happy to hear that. Because good teachers are good teachers whatever they're teaching, and there are, DJ and I have talked about this, there's some people that you can just feel teaching is this like natural way of being in the world, and just in our brief conversation I can feel that from you, like you are a teacher, and so whatever the thing that you're teaching is, you will do a great job of communicating about that.
One of the classes I'm going to teach is how to practice, because that's a thing I know. I know how to practice.
And that is a thing that is not necessarily intuitive. I got to college as a classical pianist and realized no one ever told me how to practice before. And my method of just sit down and play piano for 3 or 4 hours for fun because I could, because I was homeschooled, was not
Ah,
going to cut it when I was taking a full course load and someone was grading me on how much I had improved.
yep, yep. So yeah, over the past 60 years, I learned how to practice. And I recently read a book on, it's called The Practice of Practicing by John Harnum. So
Uh-huh. That book
I
has
think
been on my reading list.
I was probably 200 pages into it before he told me anything I hadn't figured out for myself.
Uh-huh.
One neat thing about that book, though, is there's scientific studies that back up everything that he says.
Uh-huh.
So
So
I've
the
gotten
things that we have anecdotal evidence from our own experience
right,
actually
right. But
have
I like to have the
science.
science to back it up. It's not
Yeah.
just me. It doesn't just work
Hmm.
for me. So
So give
there's,
us one or two practice tips.
oh, okay. My favorite, because this is based on brain science. You make a mistake twice, your brain thinks you want to do it that way again. So never, ever make the same mistake 2 or 3 times in a row. You can play it correctly if you play it slow enough, which is
Hmm.
painful because you want to play it fast, but you need to train your brain to do it correctly. And then you can speed it up because your brain knows what you want it to do and you don't have to think about it.
Hmm.
The other thing toward the end of the book is they did a study of people that just practiced, people that practiced slow, and people that practiced very slow and then up to tempo at pretty much, alternating. So you practice
Hmm.
super slow and then try it up to tempo. And those were the people that made the most progress.
Alternating back and forth.
Which I kind
Yeah.
of did only because I couldn't stand to play it slow all the time. Um,
That makes a lot of sense to me because I've long thought there's two kinds of practice. There's the kind of practice where you're paying attention to every sound and you're trying to get every sound right, and there's the kind of practice where you're trying not to get stopped by anything that happens.
right. The overview.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Ooh, that's good stuff. Okay, tell us the name of that book one more time.
The
The
Practice of
practice.
Practicing by John Jon Harnum, Harnum, I think.
All right, that sounds like a book that all of us could probably use. And you're going to be teaching some classes about that, which is
Yeah.
fantastic.
And so I
Yeah.
found that on Facebook. Somebody posted it. I don't remember who. Somebody just said, here's a good book. So I
It's a
got
good
it.
book.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was a very
Yeah.
good book.
That's great. Um, all right, so we're weaving all around in your life story, but I would like to hear if you have any particular musical influences. I mean, you named some of the people that you've taken lessons from. There been any particular inspirations along the way as you especially moved into the hammered dulcimer kind of world
Mhm.
and playing?
Well, I was thinking about it because this is, kind of women oriented.
Hmm.
And while I've taken lessons from a lot of men and I, admire them greatly, the people I want to play like, when I thought about it, the people I want to play like are Ruth Smith and Isla Mears and Katie Moritz. They're women. I love
Hmm.
how Joshua Messick plays, and of course, I'll never play like him, even if I wanted to. And Rick and Colin
Ah,
Beasley and Stephen
yeah.
Humphrey, but that's not the way I want to play. That's
Mhm.
not in me.
Mhm. Mhm.
So there's that.
Yeah. So you said that you wrote some of your own music. Did composition come early for you, or was that something that came with the hammer dulcimer? How does
Um,
writing fit in?
well, you have to compose a little bit in college. And all that did was convince me that I'm no good because you're listening to Haydn and Beethoven and
That's
Tchaikovsky.
kind of how
And
I felt about it too.
it's like, why do I bother? So when I was a band director, I had a couple private students that couldn't play the pieces that they published. So I wrote a couple of things that were a little easier than that. So that was all the competition. I can crank out a song for elementary school if I need one for this theme, but
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
I didn't think of myself as a composer. But yeah, with the hammered dulcimer, then it kind of opens up a new world, and I'm trying to break out of the frame of you play the dots on the page and only the dots on the page. Um,
Right.
so for me, people say things pop into their head. Nothing pops into my head ever. But
Mm-hmm.
if I nature especially is an inspiration to me.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote a piece for COVID, called COVID winter, because we couldn't go anywhere. Winter here is like 22 degrees and I didn't want to go outside. I couldn't, nothing to do. So it's like, I got to get this out of my system. And it's not a pretty piece, but so I wrote
Uh-huh.
that. And I wrote a piece during that time. A friend of ours at church had died from COVID. And I wrote a lament for him that I never finished, but I played it every day for probably 3 months just to get through
Mm-hmm.
that segment. So I don't know. I'm not big into composition, but I went to Ireland and I was determined to write some. I had the title Under Irish Skies. And then we went to see the Cliffs of Moher. They're huge. And we're
Mm-hmm.
there and it's misty and it's almost raining. And we go up in the tower and I opened the door and it was hailing on me and I couldn't turn around because everybody's coming out. So it was this huge experience and they were just so impressive. So I have a few ideas to write a piece called Misty Cliffs, but I was trying to get to Winfield and they weren't going to happen by then. So I didn't have time, but I have some ideas along those lines.
Mm-hmm. I love hearing about the writing process for different people because there are some people that it's just like it's there. I wrote a piece, it fell out of the sky, and that's it.
Yeah.
And then there are some some people, and I feel like I kind of fit into this space of being a person who for whom arranging comes more naturally, but starting from a blank canvas feels
Right.
really intimidating. Or I can start from a blank canvas and I can improvise or noodle on my instrument, but I don't think of that as being writing, you know? It's not a composition
Yeah.
unless you do it again some other time. And I don't know that I have the commitment in me to come back to it. And then there's some people, and I love the way you're describing, like you have these ideas and you're pulling these pieces and you expect it to be a process that's going to take a long time, and you're just going to keep coming back to it, and you're going to keep kind of thinking of the moments that inspire you, and those you will bring to your dulcimer, and at some point there will be a composition that's birthed out of it, but it's not a process that has to happen just like, well, it's
Well, and
there
I
or
tried to
it's
get
not.
that under Iris. I tried to get the under Iris skies for Winfield because they value originality. And I was
Mhm.
like, I got to do this. And, I couldn't think of one thing. I just went for a whole week. It's like I tried different times. I tried, it just wasn't coming because it's like, I can't do it when I got to do it.
Mm.
So I just
Mhm.
set it aside and picked a different piece.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you talking about arranging, that is one of my favorite things to do. I love to do the arrangement, to put it together and weave it in and out.
Lovely. Okay, so we are at a point in the history of the world where everything shut down for a couple years during COVID. We all moved online. Online music education became really prevalent. We have the birth of events like the Quarantine festivals, and Dulcimoon is an all online festival. And in-person festivals are, especially this year, I feel like really coming back. And you attended 9 festivals this year, you told me.
Yeah.
So I would love to hear you talk about festivals and the different experiences you've had at different festivals, and what do you see as the value of in-person versus online, and what do you see for the future of musical gatherings? That was a lot of questions. Take it any direction you want
Yeah.
to.
Pick one. So I really appreciate the online opportunities, especially quarantine is just amazing. And so many people that can't get out have that. Plus, I can, with a minimum commitment of time and money, I can learn this one thing that's been on my list, or this one song I've been meaning to, and I'm lazy. So if somebody else wants to give me an arrangement for the 1075 and teach me how to play it, I'm in. And I'll move out from that, but that's a starting point. So I think that's wonderful. But personally, I learn best when there's a person there. And I know I can ask questions, but I don't know. I'm old school because I'm old, but there's just something else about the energy of another human being there.
Mhm.
But yeah, all these festivals are also different. The weekend ones are nice because people can just, that are working can just come in for a little bit of time. Maybe they have to take one day off, and that's okay. My
Mhm.
preference is the multi-day festivals because you get to go more deeply into a subject, and I'm retired, so it doesn't matter. My very favorite one, and my husband agrees, he just started Mountain Dulcimer. I think you had him in a class at Black Mountain, Kentucky Music Week, one of the places we've been. So we like it when we can camp in a place and have the festival there and not to have to travel back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we have 2 dogs that travel with us. So, we're trying to, okay, you miss lunch today and I'll miss lunch tomorrow and go check on the dog. Anyway, but it's such a neat feeling when everybody's there in the same place all the time. And I don't know, this is magical.
Mhm. Yeah, I find um there's no replacement for the sound that happens when a group of people is in the same space, and you're playing together. And in like old time music, it tends to be playing together in unison, and in bluegrass it's each instrument sort of gets its own turn to kind of be heard. And the carp camp at Winfield is like this famous camp that does Celtic style sessions, and everybody's playing in unison, but then there will be this moment where they say just the fiddles, and you'll hear this tent full of fiddles, just the fiddles playing, and it's like this epic big sound, and there's nothing like that recorded. And I feel that way about the symphony too. Like there
Mhm.
is nothing like hearing a symphony live.
Yep.
A recorded symphony to me is boring, but a live symphony is amazing. And like a recorded jam session is not my favorite thing to listen to, but a
Another,
live jam is just magical. So there
yeah.
is something about being in the presence of the vibrations.
Another thing that I'm doing is therapeutic music. So I'm doing my internship in that. And for that, we had to read like a dozen books, specifically, among other things, about that. And they're, yeah, when they do brain studies and
Mhm.
what's happening in your brain when you listen to music, and what you're talking about is exactly, what they have proven.
Yeah.
As if, I
Yeah.
mean, we know, but it's nice to have scientific proof sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. The
And,
the
the
research really does back the power of music.
especially in a therapeutic session, it's all slow, calm music. They kept telling me, slow down, play fewer notes, slow down, play fewer notes. So it was very different because mostly I was trying to play faster and more notes.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
just the effect on the body, just even if people are sleeping or they're not really aware, just the physical effect of what that does.
Yeah. Yeah. What certification program are you going through?
Harp for Healing, because it's all online. It's a
Okay.
really good program. You have a mentor that you can ask questions of, and they approve all the little stuff. And then there's an administrator you send the big stuff to. So
I
I know
know there are
people that
several
have done it
people in
in
our
person, but I
community.
couldn't commit that much time.
Mhm. There are several people in our community who are very interested in that. And Harp for Healing, although it has harp in the name, is not limited to harp as your instrument, right?
No, they're
Yeah.
they're doing. I know they do hammered dulcimer, and they do guitar, and I'm not sure what else.
I feel like I know a mountain dulcimer player who's done the Harp for Healing program too, but I'm not 100% positive of that. I know I've been hearing about that as one of the
Uh-huh.
programs there. Yeah. Hmm. That's wonderful. So you're just playing music at festivals and for yourself and for other people in healing therapeutic settings and in performances and yeah, all the music, all the time, everywhere.
I know. It's great to be retired. Now I can do music all day.
She says, as a retired music teacher.
No lesson plans,
That's right. That's right.
no
I love
meeting.
being a freelance music teacher because I can teach whatever I want and I don't have to give anyone a grade at the end. I don't have to like report back to anyone. Yes, we did in fact learn this, whatever thing was on the checkbox. It's just we are learning, we are playing, and music is too powerful to try to force it into a box to me. This idea of you must learn this piece or you must learn these pieces in this order or you must
Right.
have these skills in order to be a proficient musician. That's another thing that kind of bothers me about formal music education is that it's like if you don't check all of the boxes then you are somehow less of a musician, and that's just not real. Like you are a musician if you make sound on an instrument and it brings you joy.
Um, One of the neat things about Winfield and the competitions is all the different styles that, I mean, I love fingerstyle guitar. So
Yeah.
instead of practicing, I sat for 6 hours and listened to every note that each person played.
Mhm.
But there's so many different styles within that fingerstyle guitar.
Mhm.
I don't know how the judges even compare one to the other. It's
Yeah.
just it's just amazing the different ways that people even use the instrument. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, so why, and teaching is just so individualized. because you teach kids, so I don't know, but I'm teaching mostly adults now. So, it's whatever you want to do, what direction do you want to take? Let's go,
Yeah.
I'll get you there.
I follow the same muse with kids, and sometimes it's really squirrely and we go all over the place. But whatever is sparking the interest right now, today, in this moment, this week it was a lot of like silly, spooky songs. We did all kinds of weird Halloween songs, and that's great. But next week they won't be interested in that.
Right.
Halloween's over. We're moving on, right? And so, yeah, that following the spark, I think, has a lot of value.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I love this. I love talking with you, and I hope we have the chance to like hang out at a festival and jam together sometime soon. Um, is there anything we missed that you want to tell people about, and how do they find you if they want to learn more about you and your music and hear you?
Well, I started a website, but I haven't got it working yet because I don't understand GoDaddy. And I,
These
anyway, I
things take
started all
time.
that before Sandbridge. I just barely started it. And now that all my wash is done, I'm going to get back to that. So there may be a website called, what's it called? Heartstringsdulcimer.com.
Oh, I love that.
Because the therapeutic music I do is heartstrings. But I'm on Facebook.
Great. Great. Yes, I'm sure we'll be seeing more of you all around in the Dulcimer community too. I'm just delighted. Um, I'm delighted that you won the contest. I'm delighted that you are finding so many ways to share the music too. And being both a teacher and a student, I think, is also one of those like really high values that we're always learning and growing and finding the next thing. And I hear you just saying that all through your work too, is that you're discovering and you're sharing, and that's really beautiful. So thank you for sharing some of your time with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for asking.
All right, everyone, have a great week, and we will be back with more Dulcimoon Talks coming up soon. So thanks for being here. Bye.